Hi everyone, welcome to the fourth episode of the SeforimChatter Plus Chatter Plus tour of my library. I think this one will finally get to the end of the library. I know I said that the last time, but hopefully this time it will be. So we're going to start now with Nach. So here I have the bookshelf on Nach, and Nach is something that often people have a small collection because they have in Makarios Gedolos, but there actually is a lot of new editions you can get from very interesting material and very unique items. So let's talk about it. This is the Abarbanel on Nach. Chorev did a really beautiful addition to the Abarbanel, which had to be done. Amazing. They're expensive. They're like $40 a volume, but I highly recommend if you're interested in learning Nach. He's not in the Makarios Gedolos, so to pull one out at random, just to show you what they did here, they edited, there's side headers on each page. There's some footnotes, and they corrected the text. They added sources. Really beautiful edition. Anyone that learns Abarbanel knows he's quite lengthy, so really necessary. After that, I have together, the Abarbanel wrote a famous trilogy on Mashiach, and in many of his Seforim, he talks about the sorrow and pain, and he was part of the expulsion. He left. He was an advisor, as many people know, to Ferdinand and Isabella. He tried to avert the decree of the expulsion in 1492. He was not successful. Despite being rich, he left, and he ends up going to Naples, and they ends up having to leave there. He ends up in Venice at the end of his life, and he's buried now in Padua, near Venice. But he talks about the Gerush Sfarad, and he did write about Mashiach. Many of those times were looking for Mashiach. So he has a 3-volume trilogy. Mayane HaYeshua, which is his commentary on Daniel. Yeshuas Meshichai, which is on HaGeula b'Medrashim. Many times Geula is mentioned in Medrash. And Mashmiei Yeshua is Geula in Nevi'im, going through Tanakh. So there are 2 new editions of this, and I have both. It's probably overkill. I have the edition from Chorev, as well as the edition from Oren Golan. He's someone that's publishing nice editions of the Abarbanel. So that's what these both are. I guess just to show you the difference, Mayane HaYeshua on Daniel. For example, Golan's, you have also side headers, notes, very nice introduction. But in the Chorev one, you also get the text, as well as a translation of, because Daniel is written in Aramaic, a lot of it. Moving on, this is a really interesting new work on Eloin Bachus, or Bachus, Rabach, or Binyamin HaKohen, Chai Vitali from Italy. This is a company Ha'itzer. I don't know if we've discussed them. They do everything in this fake leather, really beautiful cover. I mean, really, really nice. As you can see, they tried to get that old look. And the inside, they also, even on the title page, they kind of get that old kind of look. This is a commentary he wrote on Eicha. And he actually has it's more than one. First he calls it Pirush HaKinnis, and then he goes again and he calls it Pirush HaNechama. So he has it 2 different times, as well as some other things in here. So that is this. There's a new edition of Ayev Mishpat on Eev from the Rashbats, the Tashbats. Listeners might be familiar with his Chuvas. In the beginning of this, his introduction is all about Schar V'Einish. That is, the whole introduction is all about Schar V'Einish, where you can read all about it. That's before he gets to Eev, to Job, and to his commentary on Eev. Here's new editions of Ibn Ezra on Kehelas, Daniel, and Eev from Mossad of Kook. Rabbi Goodman edited these. These are Eshkol HaKofer, Esther and Rus from the Tzura Mar. Vaytem Mefarshei Megillas Esther over here. Here we get a Urim V'Tumrim, Rameir Arama, the Emes Liakiv of Yaakov Kamenetsky on Tanakh, on Nach. I only have volume 1, which is the newer one. Volume 2, which I don't have, is what came out first. There's also a couple of interesting things here in the back. He has an appendix talking about the beer of Moses Mendelssohn, and he also has an interesting appendix about Be'inyan Limud Historia, about learning history from Yaakov Kamenetsky. It's in the back of this, Nach Volume 1. Some other Seforim here. Here's more from Ha'itzer. This is another one of their books, and it has many different commentaries on Megillas Esther that they printed. Here is the Seforim of the Gaon, of the Vilna Gaon, on Nach from Mossad of Kook. They're new editions. Interestingly, for those that aren't familiar, Shir HaShirim, the footnotes were done by Rab David Cohen, Rashiv and Chevron, but his son was the one who edited them. And they are quite lengthy. Sometimes, as in this double page right here, it is only notes. There is nothing else except the notes of Rab David Cohen. Here's the Tehillim of Rav Ram Ben Agra. Here's some other Seforim. This is actually interesting. This was an academic book published by Magnus Press, which is Hebrew University. Derech HaChoshkim. It's an anonymous Pirush on Shir HaShirim, taking Shir HaShirim literally. Rashi says not literally, but this is it's literal. It's a Rishon. It's in the Oxford Library. It's in the Bodleian in Oxford, and it was owned by Rabbi David Oppenheim, the chief rabbi of Prague, the famous bibliophile. Here's some Sfarim from Sadia Gaon on Eicha and Esther. These were done by Ha'itzer, and they were reconstructed through the Karo Gniza, Gniza fragments. We can talk more about Karo Gniza at length. I have an episode on the podcast with Professor Eve Krakowski, talking about that. This is an interesting Pirush. It was Zechariah ben Saruk. He was from the time of the Gerush. But interestingly, just to show you, many of the original early commentaries called Megillas Esther Megillas Achashverosh. They didn't call it Megillas Esther. And so this is one of those that calls it Pirush Megillas Achashverosh. Here's another more Sfarim Anach, the Chida class. Here is Rabbi Yosef Chiyon, the Rebbe of the Barbanel in Lisbon, Portugal, and Yirmiyahu, on Tehillim, on Yecheskel, and many others. Rabbi Yosef Kara, Rabbi Shaya the Trani, the Tosis Rid. Yisayid Anavim, Yisayid the Anavim. This is from Rabbi Lapyansky, Yain Atayv. This is on Targum. Over here you have some more Sfarim. Actually, one that I'll pull out is Lekach Toiv. This is Rabbi Yom Tov Salon, the Maritz. He's known as Maritz Salon. This book is a new edition by Avad Shalom. This is the first book published in Eretz Yisrael, in Sfas, in the late 16th century. So that's the distinction this has. He lives in Sfas. Some number of other Sfarim over here. This is a facsimile, talking about facsimiles, of the commentary of Emmanuel of Rome. And this was an Incunabulos. It's published I believe it's Incunabulos. It's published in the 15th century, so pre-1500s. There's an episode on Emmanuel of Rome, and I will just say, for those that haven't listened to that, the Chida and Shem Magdalim suggest that the commentary you should learn on Mishlei is Emmanuel of Rome. This is his suggestion. Chazei Tzion of Emmanuel Chayriki. I will discuss this in depth on the podcast episode I'm doing for Gnazim auction, so check that out. Chazei Tzion, this is a Emmanuel Chayriki, a fascinating commentary. There's a whole story here with this. I'll discuss that in depth on the podcast episode for Gnazim auction, whether that's released before or after this. Check that one out on the podcast. Here's some Sfarim from the Sfarno, Bavadia Sfarno, including it's called Amar Hagayin. It's the Shiurim of the Sfarno. It's one volume al Torah, one on Tehillim. This is done by Moshe Kravitz. Fantastic work. And he found in an old edition of Ralbag al Torah notes in the margins of the entire Sefer, and they were saying Amar Hagoyin. And the Goyin was referring to Ravadia Sfarno, who lived in Italy in the 16th century, and this is his Shiurim that he gave on Tehillim. There's a number of other Sfarim over here. Continuing along, we have Radak on Tehillim, a classic, Eev Beis Midrashe from Machon Ofek, terrific job. This is the Ralbag on Navi, but this is in Yimrakres Gedolos as well. Here you have the commentary of Shadal Anach, Shmuel David Lutzato. Here is the Chedushe Upirushi, I don't know why it ended up here, of Rav Shamshon Wertheimer. This was published, I don't know how available this was. He was a famous Shtadlan, he was a court Jew, he was a very rich, powerful person, he had guards, this is in the 17th century, he lived in Vienna, a very famous person. So this is some Torah that we have from him. He was a big Talmud Chacham as well. So here's some other Sfarim I have, including Ramesha Chayvitz and Ramesha Gentili. This is his book on Chanukah Sabayis and Beis HaMikdash, and they even fully reproduced the map, I'll show you, that he drew of the Beis HaMikdash here. They included it in the back, so you can see that. The original editions, the rare, do have this. He's famous. His Malachas Machshavas on Chumash has the picture of him without a yarmulke and long hair, for those that are familiar with that. And then the final bookcase is my Sfarim on Moyadim. So Yomim Tovim. Here I have Haggadah Shel Pesach, a number. Haggadah Shel Pesach, I think is 40, 50, something like that every year. Can't buy that many. I try to buy, as with all the Sfarim here, I try to buy more Kadmoinim, older Sfarim. And so, not all so old. I have the new edition of the Nitziv. You have Chai Adam, you have Shlomo Kluger, Maaseh Dei Yoitzer, Medrash Bechidesh, Elazar Nachman Foa, Talmud Rami Fana, really interesting one. Some others over here are the Ma'aseh Hashem, Elazar Ashkenazi, the Yad Mitzrayim, edited by Kalman Reddish, of Yitzchak as a cover. So, continuing along, you have the Haggadah over here, Leil Shemurim, new edition of the Haggadah of the Aruch HaShulchan. In general, in my experience, Sfarim that have the picture of the author on the front are a bad idea. They're usually not real Sfarim, unless for some reason it's the Chidah or the Ben Ish Chai. But this is a real Haggadah of the Aruch HaShulchan. Terrific Haggadah. Not that it needs my Askama, but just saying. This is the Abarbanel's Haggadah, really a classic. and a terrific edition, Mosar of Cook. He has 100 questions in the beginning. Rabbi Elazar Fleckless, again, Machon Netzach Yaakov, which is Reformi Seeger's Machon. Terrific work by Rabbi Elazar Fleckless. When I say terrific, again, it's just really enjoyable to go through these. This is the Chem Yamim, classic, controversial, interesting sefer on Yom HaYadim. It was accused of Sabbatian things, and it goes through all the Yom HaYadim except for the 3 weeks. There's nothing on 3 weeks in here, and Sabbatians, Shabtai Tzvinik didn't have anything on then, obviously. But this is a classic sefer. We're not going to the whole controversy about Chem Yamim. Now, very famous, enduring sefer. Zecher David, this is Rab David Zakut Modena of Modena in Italy. This is his real encyclopedia. It's very interesting. It's like light Kabbalah, I would think would say. He has on Mila, he has on Yom Tovim. Very interesting. This is number of Seforim on Avodah Yom Kippur, published by Machon Rishus Baron. A brand new sefer, Sidrei Moedes of the Deret, Rabbi David Rabbeinu Tumim, on Yom Tovim. Moedim Behalacha, the classic, of Rosh Hashanah Yosef Zevin. Kitnius B'Pesach, an entire book on Kitnius you can read all about. David Henschke, Professor David Henschke's Manishtana, a fantastic work on how the Seder, how Pesach operated at the time of Chazal. Mikrei Kodesh, the classic of Tzvi Pesach Frank. You have some Seforim or Pella from the Elazar Papo, the Pella Yoyetz. Rameir Mazuz, Sansan Layoyer. Some articles, Professor Nariya Gutel. Here's the Eliyah Baruch Finkel classic, and this is one others that I would mention is the classic. It's kind of a book by Avram Yari, told us Chag Simchas Torah, the history of the Yom Tov of Simchas Torah. So really, a very interesting book. So that's really the library. There you have it. This is a general overview. I know I went a little bit more in depth maybe in these videos, but that's the library. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to hear more specific about shelves, let me know in the comments below or email me, SeforimChatter@gmail.com. Thank you for watching another episode of Chatter Plus. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, and comment. It does help the channel. Additionally, if you would like to sponsor an episode of the YouTube channel, please email me, SeforimChatter@gmail.com, as well as with any comment or feedback. Please listen to the SeforimChatter podcast wherever you get your podcast, SeforimChatter.com, YouTube Music, Apple Music, Spotify, or 24/6. If you would like to sponsor an episode of the SeforimChatter podcast, please email me, SeforimChatter@gmail.com.